All right. Carol, this is really special to be reading to you. So, welcome to your author on demand private reading.
Thank you.
We've been friends and writing colleagues for how long now?
Oh, yeah. 5, 7, 10, something in
Yeah,
there.
that's what I was thinking. 5, 7, 10, 15.
S
Holy
Maybe,
cow.
yeah, maybe 2009 or 8.
A long, long relationship.
Yes,
So it's really nice to be reading to you.
looking forward to it.
I'm reading the essay titled 31 Americans that you selected from my book Blindsided, Essays from the Only Black Woman in the Room. After I finish reading it, you'll get a chance to comment on why this particular essay spoke to you and emotionally what it might bring up for you, memories, comments like that, gut reactions. And I'll leave space when I finish reading, I will leave space so that we can both take a couple of breaths. "31 Americans. An ambulance shriek closes in. From which direction? Where? I slam on the brakes midway through a left turn, and the ambulance screams past. I'm frozen for a second, trying to remember how to drive. I've just come from the art museum. The exhibit was called 30 Americans, an exhibit of American life as interpreted by 30 contemporary Black artists. An engine revs, an SUV speeds by. Now I remember how to drive. Turn the steering wheel, press the gas pedal. I cruise through the leafy neighborhood that surrounds the museum. Several blocks ahead, the ambulance is shrinking, its siren receding. I felt out of place among the white onlookers touring 31 Americans. I'm sorry, I felt out of place among the white onlookers touring 30 Americans, even though I was an onlooker too, gawking at my own life compressed into claustrophobic passageways and alcoves. I chuckled at a group of photos of our hair in its myriad configurations. Yep, I used to sport that stick straight coif, thanks to a lye relaxer that, swear to God, I could still smell. And I felt joyful looking at a human shaped sculpture made from flower blossoms. You could not identify gender, race, or age. In this artist's vision, I would see cabbage roses instead of enemies. The fragrance of gardenias might hang in the air between us. I pull up for a red light where high-end white Kansas City smacks up against low-end black Kansas City. Fast food, bus stop, cell phone store. Anchoring this corner is Walgreens, the place I stock up on eyeshadow in shades designed for women of color. 30 Americans, the art exhibit, funneled into a corner which housed an installation called Duck, Duck, Noose. A circle of 9 wooden stools. On each stool sat a Ku Klux Klan hood, empty eye holes facing the center, where a rope dangled from the ceiling. The end of the rope pooled in tidy coils on the floor. Dawn, stop looking at this. Run, get out of here. But I could not move. Duck Duck Noose was an assailant holding my head underwater. At the stoplight, the car in front of me sits a beat too long after the light turns green. Cell phone distraction? The driver creeps ahead, stops again. What is he? In the fast food parking lot, the ambulance, 2 white policemen. A black person flat on the ground, face up. Bright flowered fabric across thighs. Skirt, a woman. Still as a rock. I hyperventilate. My vision blurs. I'm sobbing. I need to pull over, to park, to say, oh my God, but I can't remember how to stop driving. Automatic pilot glides my car past the scene, but my heart stumbles past it in a stupor. On the highway, as grief makes a slick mess of my face, a slideshow plays the images my brain has photographed. She's on her back, arms and legs spread. Her head is inches from the policeman's polished shoes. They stand beside their car, hands resting on their heavy laden belts. If she were alive, they'd be kneeling at her side. Wouldn't they? They'd be making her comfortable. Wouldn't they? The EMTs would be rushing to her aid. Wouldn't they? There is an absence of urgency. She's alone. May she find peace. Her family's going to get a bad phone call. May they find peace. I grip the steering wheel hard to squeeze life back into its proper shape so I can buy makeup again at that Walgreens. Maybe she's part of an art installation. I wish she were an art installation. She lies in Shavasana, corpse pose. I name her Grace, who lies at the intersection of life and art. 31 Americans.
Even stronger when read.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Tightness in my chest all over again. Thank you, Dawn. It is an important 700 words, very important. So, thank you. Not some thoughts, backwards to forwards. I am so glad you named her Grace. That honors, even if you mentioned no art exhibit had a name except Duck Duck Noose, but the fact that you named that human, a human, beautiful Grace name, was so cool, so cool. I also do a little mindfulness practice. And so I recognized your blessing of may they find peace. And that is part of the beauty of an ugly situation. So a way to not close the door, but a way to deal with this. We that's part of what we do now. We say their names. And so now we can, and I say Grace a lot. I say that name, Grace, occasionally ever since I read Blindsided, because it just describes the whole thing, So thank you. And when you read it, when you said they would be doing this, wouldn't they? Because you're fighting the pessimism with optimism, and yet the pessimism is real. And yeah, that I understand that. I understand that. And when you're describing the scene, the way you use single word descriptors is like bullets. I don't know if you intended that, but it wasn't a fast bullet. It was a slow pop, pop, pop when you say the words that describe her in the scene. So that added to me. I didn't get that when I read it, but I did get it when you read it, that these were like bullets being fired. So and the lead up.
That really gets me, Carol.
Well, it does. And
to say images were like bullets. Yeah, wow. That intensifies it.
It did. And like I said, I didn't catch that. It was dramatic in the reading of it, but in the written piece. But when you read it aloud, because I've heard bullets like that, and it's like you wait for that last bullet is this the last one? And the descriptors had that slight pause. When you read it, it had a slight pause, like pop, pop, like the next one. So yeah, it was very strong parallel for me to bullets being fired. And the duck duck noose, the fact that it was an assailant that captured you. I visited an art gallery in Maine one time, and I saw a photo of, I didn't realize it, but I was there with a girlfriend, and she tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you ready to move on?" And I said, "Okay." And she said, "You've been standing here in one position for 30 minutes. I didn't know. I felt like I was there less than 1 minute, but I was also captured by the scene in the painting. My DNA was in that scene."
Art does that.
Not often, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't turn away. It's the same as when you're driving by an accident and you want to stop and look. There's something horrible that you're repelled by and you can't turn away from.
Yeah. And you don't know if, like you said, you forgot how to drive, but automatic pilot kept you going. And it's like, because your mind is with her, your mind is there on the corner near Walgreens.
Mhm.
I'm familiar with that area.
Mhm.
Yeah. When Scott wants to go shopping, we go to that. There's a strip mall in that area that we can get the right colors of clothes that he likes to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, an inside
Colors.
strip mall. Yeah, and I can't. I like the wardrobes, but I'm a blue jean kind of person, and so it's kind of a stretch. But I understand where you're at, and yeah, because the Walgreens in the high end white area of town would not carry the same as the high end or the low end, yes, black area. That was without getting into details, that could describe any geography. So
Yeah.
that was well received and not discriminatory, but
Mhm.
um, mapping and mapping a culture was very clear with that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
trying to remember how to breathe, how to dry. Yes, stunning piece, Dawn. Stunning piece.
Thank you, Carol.
It's the length of it is perfect. I don't know if you finished it when you were finished or if you had a word count set that you were aiming for.
No word count set.
It was perfect.
Yeah, it just got finished when it was finished.
Yes. Yes. I so much of your writing, especially in all of your writing, but especially in this blindsided thing, is a beautiful reality of the gap that you fill in your life of
Did you say feel or fill?
FILL.
Okay.
You walk. I wrote a piece some time ago called The Fringe, and I love living on the fringe. I don't belong in this group, I don't belong in that group. I just don't, but I'm good. I'm 68 and I'm okay with not belonging. Um, I'm finally okay with not but the fringe is important to me because I can hold hands with both worlds
Mhm.
of the fringes. And I love your writing that when you describe your journey of um, that gap, of living in that gap. Like you said, the only white woman in the room. You're the only. I'm often the only white woman in the room, so I just transpose that onto you. So you're the only black woman in the room. So I get that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I I value your perspective.
Thank you.
I love the one where the other piece where you talked about what you heard at your uncle say about your grandma.
That's one of my favorites too.
That was funny. I get it where it's like your brain spun. It's like my brain is spinning. I have to call him in the kitchen and have this conversation. Oh,
Can't be right. But
yes.
yeah, there's something about being in that space of not belonging that I am glad that you have reached, you know how to do that. I am still learning how to do not belonging and still experiencing a discomfort with that. But I'm learning, I'm shocked to learn how much of my sense of not belonging is because of the segregated life I live, always being the only Black person. I always thought it had to do entirely with where I lived, where I went to school, but
Mm,
it's not. And I am shocked by how much of it my life has been affected by systemic racism.
mhm, mhm.
It is in every pore.
Do
Yeah.
you do
So
you
part
do
of
you
this,
go ahead. Go ahead.
part of this is I didn't start out to make this a learning about anything, the book, but the writing of it took place while we're going through this horrible, violent time. And I'm learning to understand that European white culture has constantly perpetrated emotional violence onto my little black self.
Mhm,
And I only know that now because of other books that are coming out and this willingness to look at it, for white people to look at this and say, oh my God.
mhm,
And I'm saying the same thing. Oh my God.
mhm. When I last year I read the book Between Two Worlds by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I I've never heard of him before, but I loved that because it it helped me understand um, well, a lot of what Scott has gone through, but he doesn't articulate it, of course, like an author would. But it's just it was important for me. And then I went to listen to him speak downtown at Penn Valley, and he made the statement. You know, his son goes to college in Paris because why would he let his son go to college in Baltimore? What? Why? You know, and it's like, yes, he can live different. And there's some trek I took after that I saw James Baldwin. I saw a James Baldwin book, and I sucked up everything I could on YouTube of old interviews with him and fell in love again.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
it was just part of part of my part of my coming of age, maybe at age 60, was discovering the real world, being married to one guy for 40 years, 3 weeks short of 40, and believing my mother and her prejudices, which had nothing to, we didn't have television, we didn't have electricity, so I missed the whole history of a lot of that. So I came in pretty blind, um, and uninformed and naive, but had my own um, the way my mom did things and the way she hated my father's race and my father. And since I looked like him, you know, I was, yeah, bore that same brunt of whatever she was doing. So part of that beauty of reading your work is when you go through what I went through. Like your hair was the straightener that smells like lye. My hair was not acceptable being straight, so I can still smell a perm because my mother would not let it be straight. It had to be curly, and I didn't. It wasn't. It was just her. It was just her. But so it took me till I was 60 to stop perming my hair and to embrace my straightness and now my baldness. So but the key for me that I see, that you encourage me to embrace my own unbelonging. And this is probably an old phrase about I'm good enough, and to embrace my own chub, my own rolls, my own wrinkles, my own, because at least that's, I own it now.
yeah, yeah. It's really heartening that from this book and this particular essay that you would experience that embracing of my own unbelonging.
Hmm.
That's beautiful. That's a compliment to my writing. That's a statement about where um, we all want to get to, embracing whatever that is about each of us that makes us feel that unbelonging.
It's a journey.
So, yeah, I think that we're going to end there at embracing our own unbelonging.
But you
Compassion.
belong to yourself,
Yeah.
and your writing speaks that. I it speaks that, and that's adds graciousness to your being, to your authorship. So I appreciate that.
Ah, thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Dawn.
Very sweet to be with you this morning. I
Great to be
am,
with you. What a blessing.
I am signing us off